Yes. It's very important to understand the signature of the petitioner. Right. Printed name. Yes. I acknowledge receipt of a copy of this order. Right. Now, when you don't have an obligation to really recognize any of the restraint provisions, service of the respondent, yes, that you yourself weren't involved in the making of the actual protection order, yes, you don't have anything to worry about. Oh, it was or was not her idea to reissue it. Yeah. It's kind of like this whole depository of their public records. Yes. As in, your sole purpose as a judiciary is to fatigue myself into compliance with your fraudulent court orders, where you're going to have me, you're going to make me have mental health evaluations. Yes. You're going to have me admitted to a mental facility, and you're going to have psychotropic medication administered against my will. Yes. Because you're going to fatigue me. Yes. Into compliance with what you want as a judiciary. Yes. Mm. But there's a big problem with this whole idea of really not having any compliance. And see, there is some prohibitions of certain states. Yes. That you cannot violate the actual laws of this state, every state in the United States. Yes. And if I, as the respondent, were to sue the petitioner, yes, and I asked her, I said, well, did you acknowledge the restraint provisions? Were you there on the day of the court hearing? And in your mind, you said, I'm not going to sign this. I'm not going to take receipt of it. I'm not going to take ownership of the protection order. The states are prohibited, yes, from this idea of exercising their power to invalidate the true and correct statements of the petitioner. Now, I know you're living in one of these states. It could be 50 of them. Yes, yes, yes. But there are certain prohibitions of the exercise of certain powers, and I put that as confidential. A lot of the states that said, well, this is issued in accordance with the full faith and credit provisions, and it is enforceable in every state of the United States, and there is no requirement for the petitioner to have to acknowledge it. You can arrest me multiple times for crimes I didn't commit, and if I was able to sue her, yes, for any knowledge of the issuance where she said, well, actually, I never said any of it was true and correct. I did think it was funny the number of times you were arrested because I was the alleged victim. Now, when we look here, any law impairing the obligation of contracts or grant any title of nobility, this receipt, yes, let's say you purchased something. You went into a store and they said, well, today's prices for apples, right, is $1 a pound. And you decided to buy yourself $20 worth of apples and you got 20 pounds, but they didn't give you a receipt. Most often, you cannot return any product without a return receipt. Something that contracts, yes, they oftentimes have requirements of having the receipt that you purchased something that you had a contractual agreement. Yes, yes, yes. Now, I know your $20 worth of apples at $1 a pound. You, the consumer, went back to the store. You weighed the $20 worth of apples, and you found out it was only 10 pounds. It turns out the scale in the store, yes, had every pound as being 2 pounds. Yes, and you ended up paying $2 a pound. Now you can appreciate the frustration of any contractual obligation where you as a consumer didn't have a receipt. You thought that the scale in the store was actually set at 1 pound as being 1 pound, but they kind of gypped you. The scale was 2 pounds for every pound, and you end up paying $20 for 10 pounds of apples. Now, this law impairing the obligation of contracts. See this receipt? Yes. This is a receipt for the actual contract that she had to acknowledge. She did. It's kind of like um, not having a consumer, right? Having a receipt, yes, that the purchase that they made, yes, was returnable, yes, because you, the store, had fraudulently used the scale. You cheated them out of $10. Now, what happens when you go back to the store? Do you have your receipt with you? No. Well, didn't you acknowledge the purchase? No. Then I have no obligation to return your money right now. Oops. See, without receipt as acknowledgement, yes, there was no contractual obligation to enforce any of the restraint provisions. That's why they use the word receipt.